I think I didn't do anything wrong, just had a little harmless fun at my husband's work event. But yesterday morning, I opened the door to find a process server handing me divorce papers. My husband didn't even look at me as he left for good. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. Looking back now, I can see how everything unraveled so quickly, though I still maintain that Evan completely overreacted to what was essentially nothing. But let me start from the beginning, because maybe if I tell this story properly, someone will understand that I'm not the villain everyone's made me out to be. The Meridian corporate restaurant buzzed with excitement that Friday evening. Evan's company was celebrating their biggest quarterly earnings in 5 years, and the entire management team had been invited to what promised to be an elegant affair. I'd spent hours getting ready, a new black dress that hugged my curves perfectly, my hair professionally styled, makeup that made my green eyes pop. At 34, I still turned heads, and I wasn't about to waste that at some stuffy corporate dinner. "You look beautiful, Isolde," Evan said as we walked in, his hand resting lightly on my lower back. My husband looked handsome in his navy suit, though he seemed nervous. He always got anxious at work events, worried about saying the wrong thing or not impressing the right people. After 8 years of marriage, I knew his insecurities well. "Thank you, darling," I replied, already scanning the room for familiar faces. I spotted Howard Lane immediately. Evan's boss was impossible to miss with his silver hair, confident posture, and that charming smile that had made more than a few wives at previous company events flutter their eyelashes. My friend Ria appeared at my elbow almost instantly. She worked in my HR department and had been encouraging me for weeks to live a little at this party. "Girl, you look incredible," she whispered. "Howard's already noticed. Look at him trying not to stare." I glanced over and caught Howard's eye. He raised his wine glass slightly in acknowledgement, and I felt a little thrill. It had been so long since anyone looked at me like that, like I was desirable, interesting, worth pursuing. Evan loved me, but his attention had become routine, comfortable. This felt electric. "Isolde, come meet some of the team," Evan said, guiding me toward a group of his colleagues. I smiled and made polite conversation, but I could feel Howard's presence across the room, like a magnetic pull. When dinner was served, I made sure to compliment the wine selection loudly enough for Howard to hear. "This Bordeaux is exquisite," I said, letting my voice carry. "Someone has excellent taste." "That would be me," Howard said, appearing beside our table with that devastating smile. "I'm glad you approve, Mrs. Merian. Your husband is lucky to have someone with such refined palate." "Oh, please, call me Isolde," I said, touching his arm lightly. "And I'd love to hear more about how you chose this vintage." Evan shifted uncomfortably beside me, but I ignored him. This was harmless flirtation, the kind that happened at parties all the time. If anything, it reflected well on him that other men found his wife attractive. As the evening progressed, I found myself gravitating toward Howard more and more. We discussed wine, travel, books. He was so much more worldly than Evan, who preferred staying home with his project reports and our daughter Clara's homework. Howard had been to Tuscany, had eaten at Michelin-starred restaurants in Paris, spoke 3 languages fluently. "You're wasted in HR," he told me during one of our conversations. "Someone with your intelligence and charm should be running the whole department." I laughed, feeling intoxicated by more than just the wine. "Maybe you could put in a good word for me with my boss." "Consider it done," he said, his eyes twinkling with mischief. I was vaguely aware of Evan trying to catch my attention, of his mother Linda looking increasingly uncomfortable from across the room, but I was having too much fun to care. This was what I'd been missing: intellectual stimulation, appreciation, the thrill of conquest. "Isolde," Evan said quietly, appearing at my side as I laughed at another of Howard's stories. "Could I speak with you for a moment?" We're in the middle of a conversation, honey, I said without looking at him. Howard was just telling me about his trip to Barcelona. It can wait, Howard said diplomatically, but I waved him off. No, please continue. Evan can wait. I saw my husband's jaw tighten, but he stepped back. Good. Maybe this would teach him to be more attentive, more interesting. Maybe he'd realize what he had before it was too late. When Howard excused himself to speak with other guests, Rhea immediately slid into his place. Girl, you are on fire tonight, she whispered. Did you see how jealous Evan looked? And Howard is completely smitten. It's just conversation, I said, but I was glowing with pride. Honey, that man wants you. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Before I could answer, Evan appeared again, this time with more urgency in his voice. Isolde, we need to leave. Clara's babysitter called. I didn't hear my phone ring, I said, checking my purse. She called mine. Clara's running a fever. I looked around the party, which was just hitting its stride. The band was setting up, people were ordering after-dinner drinks, and Howard was making his way back toward our table. Can't your mother handle it? She's practically a nurse. Our daughter is sick, Isolde. The way he said it made several people turn to look at us. I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment. Fine, I said, gathering my purse with exaggerated reluctance. But this is ridiculous. Kids get fevers all the time. As we made our rounds saying goodbye, Howard took my hand and held it just a moment too long. It was a pleasure getting to know you better, Isolde. I hope we'll have more opportunities to chat. I'm sure we will, I said, very aware that Evan was watching this exchange with a stony expression. The car ride home was silent except for the sound of Evan's hands gripping the steering wheel. I stared out the window, replaying the evening's conversations, still buzzing with the excitement of feeling desired again. Did you have to be so obvious? Evan finally said as we pulled into our driveway. Obvious about what? You know what? I turned to face him, genuinely confused by his tone. I was being friendly, Evan. It's called networking. Maybe if you tried it sometime instead of standing in the corner all night, you'd get promoted. He didn't respond, just got out of the car and walked into the house ahead of me. I followed, already composing the text I'd sent Rhea about how uptight my husband was being. Clara was fine, just a slight fever that broke an hour after we got home. Linda, who'd been babysitting, gave me a look that could have frozen hell over, but I ignored it. Let them all be jealous. At least someone at that party had recognized my worth. I fell asleep that night replaying Howard's compliments, already looking forward to seeing him again at the office. It never occurred to me that Evan might not be in bed beside me when I woke up. The next morning, I woke up alone. The other side of the bed was cold, clearly unslept in. I found Evan in the kitchen making coffee, still wearing yesterday's clothes. Did you sleep in the guest room? I asked, pouring myself a cup. He didn't look at me. Clara's fever broke around 3. She's fine now. That's not what I asked. I know what you asked. The coldness in his voice was unsettling, but I refused to be intimidated. If anyone should be upset, it should be me. He'd embarrassed me in front of his colleagues by making a scene about leaving early. Look, if you're still upset about last night, I'm not upset, Isolde. I'm disappointed. Disappointed? In what? Having a wife who can hold an intelligent conversation with your boss? You should be thanking me. I probably helped your career more in one evening than you have in 6 months. Finally, he looked at me, and something in his expression made my stomach clench. Is that what you think happened? I think you're being paranoid and insecure, and it's not attractive. Evan set down his coffee mug with deliberate precision. I'm going to check on Clara. He left the kitchen, and I stood there feeling like I was missing something important. But what? I'd been charming, engaging, everything a corporate wife should be. If Evan couldn't appreciate that, it was his problem, not mine. I called Rhea while I got dressed for the day. You will not believe how Evan is acting, I said, launching into a detailed account of his sulking. Men, she said dismissively. They want us to be trophies until we actually act like ones. Don't let him guilt-trip you for being fabulous. That's exactly what I told him. Well, not in those words, but still. Maybe he needs a reminder of what he could lose, Ria suggested. A little healthy competition never hurt a marriage. I was still thinking about that comment when Linda called an hour later. Isolde, we need to talk. My mother-in-law's voice was crisp, businesslike. Linda had never been warm toward me, but she was usually polite. This was different. Good morning to you too, Linda. What's on your mind? What happened last night was unacceptable. I felt my defenses rise immediately. I'm sorry, what? The way you carried on with Howard Lane, in front of Evan's colleagues, in front of his family. It was humiliating. I had a conversation with Evan's boss. Since when is that a crime? Don't play dumb with me, Isolde. I watched you flirt with that man for 3 hours while your husband stood there looking like a fool. The accusation hit like a slap. I was not flirting. I was being social, which is more than I can say for your son, who spent the entire evening acting like a wallflower. My son was acting like a married man. You should try it sometime. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, shaking with anger. How dare she? How dare any of them? I'd done nothing wrong. Nothing. I called my mother next, needing someone on my side. Oh, honey, Sylvia said after I explained the situation. They're all just jealous. You've always been too good for that family. If Evan can't handle having a beautiful, vivacious wife, that's his loss. Thank you, I said, feeling vindicated. Finally, someone with sense. Men are so fragile, darling. Their egos bruise if you so much as smile at another man. Just ignore them. They'll get over it. But as the day wore on, it became clear that Evan wasn't getting over anything. He spent most of Saturday in his home office with the door closed. When Clara asked if we could go to the park as a family, he said he had work to catch up on. Daddy's being weird, Clara said as I braided her hair that evening. Daddy's just stressed about work, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups have to work through their feelings. Did you and Daddy have a fight? The question caught me off guard. Clara was only 7, but she was perceptive. Not a fight exactly, just a misunderstanding. About the party. I stopped braiding. What do you mean? Grandma Linda said something about the party when she was babysitting. She seemed mad. I felt a flash of anger. Linda had no right to involve Clara in this. Grandma Linda was just being silly, baby. Everything's fine. But everything wasn't fine. Evan barely spoke to me for the rest of the weekend. He slept in the guest room again Saturday night, and Sunday morning I found him doing laundry, separating his clothes from mine with methodical precision. This is ridiculous, I said, watching him fold his shirts. You're acting like I cheated on you or something. Did you? The question hung in the air between us. Of course not. Jesus, Evan, I talked to the man. At a party, where you were standing right there the entire time. I was standing right there, he agreed, watching my wife flirt with my boss while everyone we know pretended not to notice. I wasn't... You touched his arm 17 times during dinner. The specificity of the number stunned me. You were counting? I didn't have to count. Everyone was counting. I felt heat rise in my cheeks. You're being paranoid. Am I? Because 3 different people have called to ask if we're having problems. My own brother wants to know if I need a place to stay. People love to gossip. That doesn't mean... It means my wife humiliated me in front of my entire professional network, and now I get to go to work Monday morning and face the fallout. For the first time, I felt a tiny flicker of doubt. Had I been too obvious? But no, I was being social, charming, everything a good wife should be at a corporate event. If people are gossiping, it's because you made a scene by insisting we leave early, I said. If you'd just relaxed and enjoyed yourself, none of this would be an issue. Evan looked at me for a long moment, then went back to folding laundry. You really believe that, don't you? Believe what? That this is my fault. I think you're making a mountain out of a molehill, yes. He nodded slowly, like I'd confirmed something he'd been wondering about. Then he picked up his basket of clean clothes and headed for the guest room. That night, I lay in our king-sized bed alone, staring at the ceiling. Maybe I had been a little too friendly with Howard. Maybe I should apologize, smooth things over. But the more I thought about it, the more convinced I became that I was being punished for nothing. So what if I'd enjoyed a man's attention? So what if I'd been a little flirtatious? I was still young, still attractive, still deserving of appreciation. If Evan couldn't handle that, maybe the problem wasn't me. Monday morning, I got up early to make his favorite breakfast, an olive branch of sorts. But when I went to wake him, the guest room was empty. His car was gone from the driveway. I found a note on the kitchen counter. Staying at James's for a few days, need some space to think. I crumpled the note and threw it in the trash. Fine, let him sulk at his brother's house. When he got tired of sleeping on a couch and eating takeout, he'd come home with a better attitude. It never occurred to me that he might not come home at all. By Wednesday, I was starting to worry. Not about Evan, he could stay at James's house until he came to his senses, but about how this looked to other people. I didn't want anyone thinking our marriage was in trouble over something so trivial. I met Ria for coffee at our usual spot downtown, needing to vent to someone who understood. "He's still at his brother's?" she asked, stirring sugar into her latte. Like a child having a tantrum. I swear, sometimes I think I married a teenager instead of a man. "Maybe that's the problem," Ria said thoughtfully. "Maybe he needs to see that other men find you attractive. Maybe he's gotten too comfortable." "What do you mean?" "I mean, when was the last time Evan really pursued you? When did he last make you feel desired, appreciated? Men get lazy when they think their wives are locked down." I considered this. It was true that our relationship had fallen into a routine over the past few years. Evan came home from work, helped Clara with homework, we watched TV, went to bed, rinse and repeat. When was the last time he'd surprised me with flowers, or planned a romantic evening, or even complimented my appearance without being prompted? "You might have a point," I admitted. "Of course I do, and Howard clearly sees what Evan's been taking for granted. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" "What can I do? Evan's being impossible." "You could remind him what he stands to lose. A little healthy competition never hurt anyone." I thought about this as I drove home. Maybe Ria was right. Maybe Evan needed a wake-up call. Maybe he needed to see that I had options, that I wasn't just going to sit around waiting for him to appreciate me. That evening, I was scrolling through the photos from Friday night's party when I found the perfect one. Howard and I laughing together, his hand on my shoulder, both of us looking genuinely happy and engaged. In the background, you could see Ria raising her glass in a toast. Before I could second-guess myself, I posted it to Facebook with the caption, "Best night with the best people." Some conversations are just too good to end. "Blessed Nasra new friends, Nasra living my best life." Within minutes, the likes and comments started rolling in. "You look gorgeous." "What a fun night." "Who's the handsome man?" I felt a surge of validation. See? Other people understood that this was innocent fun. My mother commented, "My beautiful daughter knows how to light up a room." Linda's response came an hour later. "Some people have no shame." I deleted her comment immediately. If she wanted to be petty, she could do it somewhere else. Thursday morning brought an unexpected call from Howard himself. "Isolt, it's Howard Lane. Do you have a minute?" My heart skipped. "Of course. How are you?" "I'm fine, but I wanted to talk to you about something. I saw your Facebook post from the other night." "Oh, that. I hope you don't mind that I tagged you. We looked so happy in that photo." There was a pause. "Actually, that's what I wanted to discuss. I think it might be best if we kept our interactions strictly professional going forward." The words hit like ice water. "I'm sorry, what?" "You're a lovely person, Isolt, and I enjoyed our conversation at the party, but I've been made aware that some people might have gotten the wrong impression about our friendship." What people? What impression? I think you know what I mean. You're married to one of my employees, and I need to maintain appropriate boundaries. I felt my cheeks burn. There are no boundaries to maintain, Howard. We're friends. We had a conversation at a party. I understand that's how you see it, but perception matters in my position. I'm sure you understand. Actually, I don't understand. I don't understand at all. I'm sorry, Isolt. I really am. But this is how it has to be. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, humiliated and furious. Someone had gotten to him. Someone had poisoned him against me, made him think our innocent friendship was something sordid. I called Ria immediately. You will not believe what just happened. After I explained the conversation, she was as outraged as I was. That's ridiculous. You did nothing wrong. Someone must have said something to him, someone who's jealous of our connection. Probably Linda. She seems like the type to stick her nose where it doesn't belong. Or Evan. God, what if Evan called him? What if he went to his own boss and made me sound like some kind of homewrecker? Please. You're a married woman who had a conversation with a man at a party. If that's scandalous, then every corporate event in America is a den of sin. But even as Ria reassured me, I could feel something shifting. At work that afternoon, conversations seemed to stop when I walked into rooms. People who usually chatted with me by the coffee machine suddenly had urgent business elsewhere. By Friday, I was sure I was being paranoid. Then I saw the email. It had been sent to the entire company, marked Professional Conduct Reminder from HR. The content was generic, standard boilerplate about maintaining appropriate relationships at company events, representing the organization with dignity, respecting colleagues and their families. But the timing felt personal. I stormed into my supervisor's office. Was this about me? Margaret looked up from her computer with carefully neutral expression. I'm sorry. The conduct email. Was it about what happened at the party? Isolt, that email goes out quarterly. It's standard policy. The timing seems awfully coincidental. Margaret sighed. Sit down, please. I remained standing, arms crossed. There have been some concerns raised about your behavior at the celebration. What concerns? By whom? That's not important. What's important is that we maintain professional standards, both at work and at company events. I maintain professional standards. I had a conversation with a colleague. Multiple people reported that your interactions with Mr. Lane were inappropriate for a married employee. The words hit like a physical blow. Multiple people? I'm not going to name names, but yes. The consensus was that your behavior reflected poorly on both yourself and the company. I felt the room spinning. This is unbelievable. I'm being persecuted for being friendly. You're not being persecuted. You're being reminded of our standards. Consider this a verbal warning. A warning. I was being officially warned for having a conversation, for being charming and engaging, and everything a good employee should be. I left Margaret's office in a daze. In the parking lot, I sat in my car and called Evan's number. For the first time in days, he answered. Hello, Isolt. Did you call Howard? What? Did you call your boss and tell him not to talk to me? There was a long pause. No. Did you complain to anyone at work about me? I didn't need to complain to anyone. Half the company was at that party. So you're just going to let them humiliate me? Let them make me look like some kind of predator for having a conversation? I'm not letting anyone do anything, Isolt. I'm staying out of it entirely. Well, I hope you're happy. I got a formal warning at work today because of your jealousy and paranoia. I'm sorry that happened. He didn't sound sorry. He sounded tired. When are you coming home? I asked. I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? You can't live at James's house forever. Why not? The question stunned me. Because you're married, because you have a daughter, because this is ridiculous. Is it ridiculous, Isolt? Yes. All of this over nothing. Okay. Okay? That's it? Okay. What do you want me to say? I want you to come home and stop acting like a child. I'll think about it. He hung up before I could respond. I sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes, trying to make sense of what was happening. How had everything gone so wrong so quickly? All I'd done was be friendly, be charming, be the kind of wife any man should be proud of. But as I drove home to our empty house, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something important. Something that everyone else could see but me. I just couldn't figure out what it was. I spent the weekend alone with Clara, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy while my world crumbled around me. My 7-year-old kept asking when Daddy was coming home, and I kept giving her vague answers about work stress and grown-up problems. Sunday evening, as I was tucking Clara into bed, she looked up at me with those serious brown eyes she'd inherited from Evan. "Mummy, did you do something wrong?" The question caught me completely off guard. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "At the party. Grandma Linda said you did something wrong at the party." I felt a surge of anger. Linda had no right to involve Clara in this mess. "Grandma Linda doesn't understand what happened, baby. Sometimes grown-ups disagree about things." "But Daddy's sad. I can tell when I talk to him on the phone." My heart clenched. "Daddy will be fine. We're just working through some things." "Are you going to get divorced?" The word hit me like a physical blow. "Where did you hear that word?" "Sophie's parents got divorced last year. She said they used to fight a lot, and then her daddy moved out, and then they got divorced." I pulled Clara close, inhaling the scent of her strawberry shampoo. "Daddy and I aren't fighting, sweetheart. We're just taking a little break to figure things out." But even as I said it, I wondered if it was true. Evan and I weren't fighting. Fighting would imply communication, engagement, passion. What we had was worse. Cold silence, avoidance, the slow death of indifference. Monday morning brought another surprise. I was getting ready for work when I heard cars in the driveway. Looking out the window, I saw Evan's Honda pulling up, followed by Linda's silver sedan and James's pickup truck. My stomach dropped. This wasn't a casual visit. I met them at the front door, trying to project confidence I didn't feel. "Well, this is unexpected." Evan looked different, leaner somehow, his jaw set with determination I'd never seen before. Behind him, Linda wore an expression of grim satisfaction, while James looked uncomfortable but resolute. "We need to talk," Evan said. "All of us. How cozy." "May we come in?" I stepped aside and they filed into our living room. Linda and James sat on the couch while Evan remained standing, a manila folder clutched in his hands. "What's this about?" I asked, though I had a sinking feeling I already knew. Evan opened the folder and pulled out a stack of papers. "I want you to look at something." He handed me a printed screenshot of my Facebook post, the photo of Howard and me laughing together. Below it were dozens of comments, including several from people I didn't even know. "So, read the comments." I scanned them quickly. Most were innocuous, but a few made my cheeks burn. "Is that your husband? He's gorgeous." "Lucky girl." "Some women have all the fun." "Who's the silver fox? Asking for a friend." "I don't control what other people comment on my posts," I said defensively. Evan pulled out another paper, a printout of text messages between Rhea and me. My blood ran cold as I recognized our conversation from the coffee shop. "How did you get these?" Rhea forwarded them to someone, who forwarded them to someone else. They made their way back to me. I read my own words with growing horror. Maybe he needs to see that other men find me attractive. A little healthy competition never hurt anyone. "This is taken out of context," I said quickly. "We were just venting, the way friends do." "Were you?" Evan pulled out more papers. "Because there's also this." It was a receipt from the party, showing that I'd ordered and paid for 2 extra glasses of wine, both delivered to Howard's table. Below that, a photo someone had taken of me touching Howard's shoulder while he whispered something in my ear. "You've been building a case against me," I said, incredulous. "Like I'm some kind of criminal." I've been documenting what happened, Evan said calmly. Because I knew you'd try to rewrite history. You'd make it seem like everyone else was crazy, like everyone else was overreacting. Everyone is overreacting. Are we? Linda spoke for the first time, her voice sharp with anger. Because from where I sit, it looks like you spent an entire evening publicly humiliating my son while flirting with his boss. I was being social. You were being selfish, Linda cut me off. You were thinking about yourself, about your own ego, about getting attention from another man. You weren't thinking about your husband, your marriage, or your daughter. That's not true. Isn't it? Evan's voice was quiet, but it carried more weight than Linda's shouting. When was the last time you asked me about my work? Really asked, not just polite conversation. I opened my mouth to respond, then closed it. I couldn't remember. When was the last time you complimented me the way you complimented Howard that night? Again, silence. When was the last time you touched my arm, or laughed at my jokes, or looked at me the way you looked at him? That's different, I said weakly. How? We're married. We're comfortable with each other. Comfortable? He said the word like it tasted bitter. Is that what you call it when you ignore your husband all evening to flirt with his boss? I wasn't flirting. 17 times, Isolde. You touched his arm 17 times during dinner. I counted because I was sitting right there, watching my wife seduce another man in front of everyone I work with. The word seduce hung in the air like an accusation. That's not what I was doing. Then what were you doing? For the first time, I found myself without an easy answer. What had I been doing? Having fun, enjoying myself, feeling desired and appreciated. I was being friendly, I said finally. You were being inappropriate, James said quietly. It was the first time he'd spoken, and his words carried extra weight because of it. I love you, Isolde. Your family. But what you did at that party was wrong. Not you too. Everyone could see it except you. The way you monopolized Howard's attention, the way you ignored Evan, the way you acted like a single woman at a singles bar instead of a married mother at her husband's work event. I felt tears starting to form. I didn't mean for it to be like that. But it was like that, Evan said, and now I have to go to work every day knowing that everyone saw it, knowing that my own wife chose to embarrass me rather than support me. I was supporting you. I was being charming and engaging in everything a corporate wife should be. A corporate wife supports her husband, Isolde. She doesn't compete with him for attention from his boss. The truth of that statement hit me like a slap. Is that what I'd been doing? Competing with Evan? I want you to look at one more thing, Evan said, pulling out the final paper from his folder. It was a legal document, formal letterhead, official language, my name at the top. I scanned it quickly, the words blurring together. Intent to file for legal separation. Irreconcilable differences. Primary custody of minor child. You're divorcing me. The words came out as a whisper. I'm considering it. Over this, over one party. Over what this party revealed about our marriage, about who you are when you think no one's watching. But people were watching, that's the whole point. No, Isolde, the point is that you didn't care. You didn't care that people were watching. You didn't care that I was watching. You didn't care about anything except getting attention from another man. I sank into the armchair, the legal papers trembling in my hands. This is insane. You're throwing away 8 years of marriage because I talked to someone at a party. I'm protecting myself and our daughter from someone who thinks marriage is a game, Evan said. Someone who thinks humiliating her husband is acceptable as long as she's having fun. I never meant to humiliate you, but you did. And when I tried to talk to you about it, you dismissed me. You called me jealous and insecure. You made it clear that your need for attention was more important than my feelings. I looked around the room, at Linda's satisfied expression, at James's disappointed face, at my husband's calm determination. They'd all turned against me. They'd all decided I was the villain in this story. What do you want from me? I asked. I want you to understand what you did wrong. I understand that you're all overreacting to... No, Evan's voice cut through my words. I want you to understand that you betrayed our marriage, that you chose another man's attention over your husband's dignity, that you put your own ego ahead of our family. I didn't betray anything. Then we have nothing more to talk about. He stood up and Linda and James followed suit. At the door, Evan turned back to me. I'll be by this weekend to get more of my things. I'd prefer if you weren't here. Where am I supposed to go? I don't know, Isolde. Maybe you can ask Howard. The door closed behind them with a soft click, leaving me alone with the legal papers and the crushing realization that my marriage was over. And I still didn't understand why. The next few weeks passed in a blur of phone calls, meetings, and legal documents that I couldn't quite believe were real. Surely this was all an elaborate bluff. Surely Evan would come to his senses and realize he was throwing away our entire life together over one misunderstood evening. My lawyer, Patricia Hendricks, was a sharp woman in her 50s who specialized in divorce cases. She'd been recommended by a friend who'd gone through a messy divorce the year before, though at the time, I couldn't imagine anything messier than arguing over who got the good china. Now I was learning there were much messier things to fight over. Let me be frank with you, Isolde, Patricia said during our first meeting. Your husband's attorney has put together a compelling case. The evidence suggests a pattern of inappropriate behavior and disregard for your marriage. What evidence? I had a conversation with someone at a party. Patricia spread the papers across her desk, the same photos, text messages, and receipts that Evan had shown me, plus several I hadn't seen before. Bank records showing I'd used our joint account to buy a new dress specifically for the party. A screenshot of my Google search history. How to flirt at work events. Signs your husband takes you for granted. Is emotional cheating real cheating? I stared at the search history, my cheeks burning. I'd forgotten about those late-night rabbit holes, those moments of doubt and curiosity that had seemed so harmless at the time. These searches were I was just curious. It doesn't mean anything. It establishes intent, Patricia said. It suggests premeditation. Combined with the witness statements. What witness statements? She pulled out another folder. Testimony from other party attendees describing your behavior that night. Your mother-in-law, your brother-in-law, several of your husband's colleagues. I scanned the statements, each one like a knife to the heart. Mrs. Marion spent the entire evening focused on Mr. Lane, ignoring her husband and acting inappropriately for a married woman. She was clearly flirting, touching his arm constantly, laughing too loudly at his jokes, positioning herself to be close to him. It was uncomfortable to watch. Everyone was talking about it. Mr. Marion looked humiliated. I felt sorry for him. This is all subjective, I said desperately. People see what they want to see. Maybe, but there's also this. Patricia showed me a new document, a statement from Howard Lane himself. My heart sank as I read his careful, professional language, describing our interactions as inappropriate and unwelcome, stating that he'd made it clear he wanted to maintain professional boundaries, and confirming that he'd never encouraged Mrs. Marion's attention. He's lying, I said. He was flirting back. He was enjoying it. Can you prove that? I thought about it. Could I? Howard had been charming, engaging, complimentary, but he was always those things. He was a natural schmoozer, a people person. Had I misread his professional friendliness as personal interest? He told me I was wasted in HR, I said. He said I should be running the department. That's a professional compliment, Isolde, not evidence of romantic interest. He held my hand when we said goodbye. For how long? In what context? I tried to remember. It had felt significant at the time, but now... Maybe a few seconds longer than normal, when we were saying goodbye. Patricia made a note. That's not going to help us. Over the following weeks, more evidence emerged. Security camera footage from the restaurant showing me following Howard to the bar. standing closer to him than necessary, placing my hand on his back while he ordered drinks. Photos from other attendees, showing me leaning in to whisper in his ear, laughing with my hand on his chest, sitting with my body angled toward him and away from Evan. I don't remember doing half of these things, I told Patricia. That's the problem with alcohol and infatuation, she said dryly. They tend to impair judgment and memory. The custody evaluation was scheduled for the following month. A court-appointed psychologist would interview both Evan and me, observe our interactions with Clara, and make recommendations about living arrangements. What are my chances? I asked. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. Honestly, not good. Your husband has been Clara's primary caretaker for the past month while you've been dealing with the situation. He's documented every interaction, every phone call, every missed pickup. He's building a case that you're unstable and potentially harmful to your daughter's emotional well-being. Harmful? I love Clara more than anything in the world. I believe you do. But love isn't enough in family court. They care about stability, consistency, good judgment. Your behavior at that party calls all of those things into question. I left Patricia's office feeling more hopeless than ever. How had everything spiraled so far out of control? All I'd done was enjoy myself at a party. All I'd done was feel attractive and appreciated for one evening. But as I sat in my car in the parking lot, I found myself thinking about Clara's question. Did you do something wrong? Maybe I had. Maybe I'd been so focused on how good Howard's attention made me feel that I'd forgotten about how my behavior might affect everyone else. Maybe I'd been selfish. But even if I had been selfish, did that really justify destroying our entire family? The custody hearing was scheduled for the following Friday. I had 5 days to figure out how to convince a judge that I deserved to keep my daughter. 5 days to figure out how to convince myself that I deserved her. The family courthouse was nothing like the grand, imposing buildings you see in movies. It was a squat, beige structure that smelled like disinfectant and despair, filled with the quiet murmur of broken families trying to pick up the pieces. I sat in the hallway outside Judge Morrison's courtroom, watching Evan review his notes with his attorney. He looked calm, prepared, like a man who'd made peace with his decisions. Across from him, Clara sat with Linda, coloring in a book and occasionally glancing between her parents with worried eyes. My own attorney had warned me that this wasn't going well. The evidence against me was overwhelming, not because I'd done anything illegal or even technically wrong, but because I'd demonstrated what the court would see as poor judgment and disregard for family stability. Remember, Patricia whispered as we waited for our case to be called. Be honest, be contrite, and focus on Clara's best interests. Don't try to justify your behavior or blame others. When Judge Morrison called our case, I felt like I was walking to my own execution. Judge Morrison was a woman in her 60s, with steel-grey hair and the no-nonsense demeanor of someone who'd seen every possible variation of human selfishness and stupidity. She reviewed the case file while we sat in silence, occasionally making notes or asking the attorneys to clarify a point. Mrs. Marion, she said finally, looking at me over her reading glasses. I've reviewed the evidence in this case, including the incident that precipitated these proceedings. Do you understand why your husband is seeking primary custody of your daughter? I understand his reasons, Your Honor, but I don't agree with them. Explain. I took a deep breath, trying to remember Patricia's coaching. I made some poor choices at a work event. I was overly friendly with my husband's supervisor, and I can see how that might have been inappropriate. But I never intended to hurt my family, and I certainly never did anything that would make me an unfit mother. The court isn't questioning your love for your daughter, Mrs. Marion. We're questioning your judgment. Can you tell me what you've learned from this experience? In court, I dodged. I've learned actions affect others. Marriage means prioritizing my husband. Judge, what did you want flirting with Mr. Lane? Just enjoying myself. At his expense? I was selfish, I admitted, but part of me still thought everyone overreacted. Evan. Clara thrives with me. I can't trust her judgment after risking our family for attention. One mistake, I burst. You're destroying us over a party. Judge. You're destroying it. Divorce granted. Primary custody to Evan. Your visit supervised until you show good judgment. I begged Evan. Tell her I'm a good mother. He wouldn't look at me. Clara cried as they left. I clutched the orders, finally seeing the Facebook photo. Blatant flirtation, no boundaries, too late. House to Evan, me alone, craving attention led to isolation. What I wanted most was already gone.